we wait for?
And this one.
Oh, wait for Tracy. Okay.
Didn't we just replace one of those?
No, we replaced the fire truck, the ladder truck, I remember.
Something else I thought we got.
All right.
Got the command
So we're
vehicle.
gonna open the Tuesday, November 12th, 2019 Board of Selectmen meeting. Can we please stand for pledge allegiance? Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have no resident comments. Ed, would you mind reading the warrant?
Okay. Payroll warrant 20-19, the amount of $166,238.33.
Second?
Second.
And any further discussion? Approve?
Yep.
Discussion.
Bill warrant 20-19, in the amount of $1,266,799.90.
Get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
You want a breakdown of that?
Sure.
Town, $130,561.37. Water and sewer, $21,525.04. Payroll withholding, $60,272.61. Light bills, $83,876.65. Grants and revolving, $147,560.20. Kentucky assessment, $822,041.75. Capital, $962.28.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, moving on, we have the minutes from the October 15th, 2019 meeting.
I move for approval, I've reviewed them.
Second.
Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Yep.
We have the minutes from the October 21st, 2019 executive session minutes.
And I've reviewed those, I move for approval.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Yep.
Okay, we have nothing for appointments, so now we have discussion and possible vote. We have Eric Loth Jr. from Minco Development to have preliminary discussion with the board regarding 181R School Street and potential 40B project.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a point of information? It's under discussion and possible vote. Under what capacity would we be having to vote on this at this juncture?
I don't believe any, but I didn't put it there. I definitely can discuss it.
I don't think there'd be a vote on anything. We really can't vote on anything on that anyways.
Right.
I think
Okay.
it's more of a discussion rather than
So
vote.
there won't be any voting on it?
I don't plan on voting on anything.
No, I don't.
Okay, just wanted to get the information.
Not that my
Thank you.
vote's gonna do anything tonight, but
Okay.
Anyway, thank you for coming in. And,
Great. Mr. Chairman and fellow members, thank you for the time. Eric Loth from Minco Development. If you're not familiar with us, we're in downtown North Andover, been there 30, 35 years. So we've been looking at this piece of land, if everybody's not familiar, at 181 School Street, kind of right down the street. We're longtime friends and partners with Frank Franzone, who's owned the land for some time. We've been working with him for a couple of years, looking at it, trying to figure out what can go here, what do you want to do with it. He's the kind of guy that would probably go out there in a bulldozer and just start doing something. We said, well, you got to go through all the channels first, obviously. So I believe somebody from my company, it was my father-in-law, somebody might have come in about a year ago, either talked to somebody, the selectmen. When I went and talked to Denise a couple of weeks ago, I said, we've done a lot of these 40B projects, 40R projects, different housing projects, but we never want to go into a town cold and kind of surprise everybody. I'd rather try to work collaboratively. So I've talked to one or two of the neighbors and wanted to kind of I brought a couple plans that are just preliminary. I can lay them out in front of you to take a look at and just have a real quick discussion, because I know you guys are probably busy, and just try to solicit some feedback from the town, because we'd rather get people's input that live, you know, in the neighborhood next door, across the street from the selectmen and people, and try to go through an iterative process, you know, some give and take, and come up with something that everybody feels they can live with, as opposed to coming in and saying, hey, we want to put this giant thing here and nobody has any say. So that's kind of where we're coming from. We've done a lot of projects in North Andover, because that's our hometown. Right now, we're building at the MBTA, at the train station in Newburyport. They had 3 parking lots at the train station, right at the end of the line. It's kind of near the traffic circle in Newburyport. And a couple of years ago, the MBTA decided, actually it was 2012, they decided they didn't need all 3 parking lots. They weren't being used. So they went out for an RFP, and we ended up being the winner of the RFP. And we worked with Newburyport to write a 40R district, so they actually get some benefit out of, you know, having the project there. So we're building 76 apartments there right now, right at the train station. And then we bought a piece of land next door, and we're going for permitting for another similar building. But those are the kind of projects we've done in Andover, North Andover, Newburyport, kind of the surrounding areas. We recently did a project in Revere on the water, one in Cambridge, about 50 units, and we're building in Lynn on the ocean right now. So kind of mostly in this area. We're a family-owned company. We build and hold on to stuff and manage it for the long term. So when we do something, we're there, you know, we're there for the long term. But if you don't mind, I could roll out, just for everybody's benefit, to take a quick look.
While you're doing that, how many units are you preliminarily planning to put on that 181R?
So we're looking at, it's 6.5 acres.
Yeah.
Looking at 3 buildings right now, and we're not final, at 130, 140 units.
We might have a thing for you to put that on.
An easel, I'm sorry I didn't bring the
Yes,
easel.
I think so.
Going to get it.
Just, if we're all like this, I think like,
Will you ask questions while he's doing that, Bill?
everybody
ask
at home will
questions
just see
while
the
he's
top of our head.
And that's
That's very much information.
6. And as far as the other 40B projects you've done in the area, when you've worked with the town, have they been mostly friendly 40B or unfriendly 40Bs?
Mostly friendly. We did one in North Andover a couple years ago, and the town was, I think, neutral, and we had some neighbor opposition, and it took maybe a year to go through permitting. We had started with 5 buildings, 240 units. We ended up with 4 buildings, 196 units. It was a bigger piece of land. But it's funny, you know, I kind of look at it like, gee, we're getting slowed down. But at the end of the day, we actually ended up with a better project. So we
Because
ended
you
up.
worked with the town.
Because we worked with the town and we worked with the neighbors, I kept
Yeah.
having them into our office and meeting, and at the end of the day, it was like a 25 or 26 acre piece of land. We ended up consolidating the buildings, putting them closer together, and then leaving the rest of the land open space. We put in some walking trails, there's some ponds and stuff. So actually, kind of going through the process, it made it a better project, I think, for everybody. So at the end of the day, because the neighbors had all gotten together, they put some money in, they hired an attorney that fights 40B projects and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, they were satisfied. You know, I met with a couple of neighbors afterwards, and the guy's like, well, I'm not super excited that's happening in my neighborhood. He said, but you guys made some changes, you made the building shorter, you moved them back, you did kind of what we were looking for to minimize the traffic, some of the
Right.
impact. So, you know, I
Okay.
weren't, at the end of the day, they weren't, you know, like I say, they weren't excited to have
Well,
it,
I mean,
but
with the 40B, especially with our town, we're obligated to have a certain percentage, right? So something's gonna happen, it's just how much construction or obstruction is gonna be
right,
with
can
it.
you get it in a place that's appropriate?
Right,
And can you get it, yeah, not jammed down your throat? Because
Right.
we've been in a bunch of other towns, it's always the same thing, like, you know, let's not put it in a neighborhood of all single-family homes, let's put it where there's, you know, the traffic not gonna be a real impact and all that.
right, yeah.
I'm sorry I didn't have this put on a board for you, so I wasn't sure whether you gonna want to see something or not. If I go to the color code,
She's going to get more stuff for you.
I guess you just said the magic
so
word. I just ask, you're coming to, are we the first board in this town that you've come to about this?
yes, so, as you probably know, we need to go, really the process is we apply first to the state for a site approval letter. We haven't done that yet. Before even doing that, thank you.
Okay.
Before even going for a site approval letter, they typically want you to get some feedback from the town, and that's always been, even if it weren't a 40B, that's always been the kind of the way we've worked as well.
Right.
But just to give you a quick overview, this is School Street here.
Oh, you flipped and everything.
See, I knew you guys would be so helpful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think we should introduce Susan and discuss it in our stance.
And this is 181 School Street. So if you know, the sidewalk runs from downtown. One of the reasons why we thought this was a great site for it is because School Street obviously is a pretty busy road anyways. You've got all the utilities along there, sewer, water, gas, everything you need. There's multifamily out back here, you know, Whitestone Village. Then you have some single-family houses here. And then, like I said, this is about 6.5 acres of land. And there's a lot of grade. From here down to here, I'd say it's probably 25 feet. It breaks from the road heading down. The good thing about that is these buildings in back, you're kind of hiding down below. So I think we're gonna propose is 2 4-story buildings down the back with parking under them. Wanted to make this a shorter 3-story building because it's closer to the road. In our original plans, we had a civil engineer that laid out a building here. But I talked to a couple of neighbors. I said, why don't we try to flip it over here? And the buildings were also closer. They had one running along here. I said, if you can put a little clubhouse here and push these buildings further away, so this building is probably about 200 feet from that house. So, you know, there's some mature trees there anyways, and if we can do more to plant. But that's kind of the thought that we're going with. Probably know under Chapter 40B, you have to have 10% of the units as 3 bedrooms under state code. Otherwise, we also want to have a mix of studios, 1s and 2-bedroom units.
You have a picture of what the building would look like when it's done?
I have some preliminaries. They're not colored yet. And we're still working on these because the first go-round I really wasn't happy with. So there's a mix of stone and different types of siding to break it up. And these aren't, you know, real balconies right now, they're Juliet balconies. But I asked them, I think these windows are a little too small, I think they need to get bigger, I'd like to see. Oh, yeah, you can. Thank you. I think I'd like to see a French door behind these, because in my mind, the windows still look a little too small. I want to try to let in some more light. But we want to stick with somewhat colonial architecture. So like when we've built in Cambridge, they want to see something very modern. We did a 8-story building. It's, you know, really modern looking. But when we've built in North Andover and Newburyport, we're always trying to match kind of what's in the town.
So that being said, I was at a meeting a few weeks ago with the Merrimack, I always say it wrong, housing over in
Okay.
Havel. I probably said it wrong.
The planning commission or the?
Merrimack, that's it, Merrimack Valley Planning.
Okay.
So the girl there had briefly talked to us a little bit about this project and said what we see. I think you might have, or someone from your company might have contacted her, and she was trying to feel us out.
Mrs. Karen Kennard?
Karen, right.
Right.
So she was trying to feel us out in what we thought and what have you. And I said, you know something, you take a ride around that area. That area is all 1-story, single-family homes. Even what they did down there in the back with the development down back. You go stick a 4-story building on this piece of property, 200 feet, 25 feet, it's not gonna fit the area. I know there's tree cover, whatever. My thing, me personally, I would like to see if it's gonna go in, to try and make it look and match that neighborhood as best it can.
Sure.
Because I don't wanna see a big brick building go up there and it doesn't fit the neighbor. I know you're saying it's down and inclined, it's down hidden, but I could see if this was going up on Salem Street someplace up toward the commercial end of town, it would fit it better. This is
Right.
right smack dab in the middle of a residential area, which personally, I think it's gonna be an impact to the neighborhood, myself, you know what
Sure.
I mean? But it is what it is, and I'm sure you guys will do what you gotta do, but please, I just ask if you can keep it and design those buildings to try to match the neighborhood if it goes through, you know?
So that's great feedback for us. So are you thinking, let me try to understand, height issue and then also siding,
Well,
trying to keep
You
it
guys are
more?
obviously gonna put as many buildings in as you possibly can to make the dollar go as much as you can. That's your business, that's what you're in
Right.
business to do. So, that being said, at what point in time do you break when you've made your money and you don't overfill the property and make it ugly, in my eyes? And ugly could
Right.
be, like I said, a brick building, an all brick building. I mean, I really wanna see the design that fits the neighborhood. Maybe however we go about it.
The relief view you have on the top right over here, that's the back building, correct? The back top?
That's,
Yeah.
these two are 4-story,
How's
that's gonna
that
be a shorter
different?
building.
How is that different from, is it the same kind of layout, but just three
Same look,
stories?
just shorter.
Okay.
Same look, just shorter.
So maybe something like making that more look like just a big house, rather
Something.
than something that looks like
Yeah,
an apartment, at least in the front.
Well, I don't know if you're aware, we already have a fairly significant 40B project that's it's very troublesome to us to try to absorb. I mean, not just
Right.
population-wise, traffic-wise, and I think you'd be accessing the very same road system that that other development is going to. And I would wonder do you know, what happens to the property values of the homeowners around this type of development? Should they expect their property values to go down or to go up? Because I would think that would be important to them. And the people in Whitestone Village who are fairly new, those are fairly high-end condominiums, is my understanding. They're kind of pricey. I would think they wouldn't want to lose value on their investments. Home is usually your biggest investment, and
Sure.
most people, that, other than just, the crowding and things like that, impact on property values would be a concern I would have, in addition to the aesthetics of the neighborhood, that, people do invest in our town. They buy homes here because we're known as a really nice, beautiful, tree-lined bedroom community, and that's the look that I think we're trying to preserve here. It gets difficult, when people want to build 4- and 5-story buildings, because I'm just not sure in my mind, I can't imagine how that would fit with our tree-lined, bedroom community kind of look. I mean, it's a beautiful little
Right.
town. I'd like to see it stay that way.
Agreed, and we wouldn't come here if it weren't a nice town. I mean, all the places that I mentioned that we've done business, like Andover and Newburyport and Wellesley and Natick, they're all great places to live with good school systems. And part of what we've done in the past is, I'm in my mid-40s now, so that means my parents and most of my friends' parents are all in their 70s. And I grew up in North Andover, so they all might have a house that's 2,000 square feet or 3,000 square feet. And now they're looking at, my kids are out, I'm going to sell the house, where am I going to go? And for the longest time over there, it was, I'm going to go to Exeter, or maybe I'm going to go to Haverhill. There weren't a lot of options,
Right.
to be able to downsize. And so we did, back in 2005, a 126-unit condominium project in North Andover on Route 125 across from the 99 restaurant. And a bunch of people I know moved in there because it was one of the first new multifamily developments that had been built in 30 years. There had been some in the early 70s, some wood frame ones. But I think offering an option for people that, grew up in town, you get a little bit older, but you want to stay in town because all your friends are here and you do all your activities here and you don't want to have to move out. So trying to fit something, and maybe it's 3 stories, maybe it's more colonial looking, maybe the one in the front looks like a farmhouse. That's part of the reason I'm here, is try to understand it, because we don't want to go in and put something garish that is going to make everybody uncomfortable. It's not going to work for the town. Now, to the chairman's point, we need a certain amount of return, but there's not a lot of basis to this land. It wasn't a really expensive piece of land, so we don't have to do, tons and tons of units. Operationally, it's a little more efficient if you have more, because we're going to have an on-site management team. So whether you have 50 units or 125 or whatever the number is, you're still going to have that person, and you're still going to have, some overhead there. But I think we have some flexibility in what we can do, though.
I know this is all preliminary kind of information, but have you thought about exiting and entering the property from School Street, what that's going to look like? Are you thinking a stoplight there, or a flashing yellow, or?
I don't think either. I don't think, we wouldn't produce enough trips to get a warrant for a light. So we haven't done traffic calcs yet
Okay.
at this point. But I know when we've done projects, traffic is always one of the biggest concerns. And a traffic engineer we hired for one of our projects, one of the first ones I ever worked on, he got the same question. He said, a Dunkin' Donuts drive-through has 3 times as much traffic than you'll have out of a place like this. It's like, really? But it's true when you look at the traffic generation. So we'll have to look at it, peak hours 6 to 8 in the morning and, 5.
Yeah, I mean, just because I grew up here and I know that the traffic on School Street,
It's heavily
5 to 8 a.m. is pretty heavy. And then 4 to 7 p.m. is also pretty heavy. So, trying to pull in and out of some of those streets even further up on School Street, like by Salem Street, can be lengthy and, aggravating.
The queuing.
Right.
Would you say most people, how's the split in the morning between going, say, to 95 and going the other way? Is it,
Well, I had this conversation before. There's 3 ways to get out of Groveland, right? It's Salem Street, School Street, and Main Street, and
Yeah.
then that's it. And if you want to go into, onto 95, you got to go through Groveland over through Georgetown.
Right.
And there's multiple stops and all kinds of traffic that hinder that. And then if you want to get from 95, over to Merrimack or to West Newbury or to this side of Haverhill, you got to go through Georgetown and Groveland, which, when you're coming down through Groveland in the late afternoon, early evening, it's backed up from the town square up School Street.
Yeah.
So there's 50, 60 cars there, and you start talking about adding 200 units with 2 people per unit, 300 or 400 people with this project. And then the other project that's coming to light that wants to also do something that's maybe bigger, it's going to be a big impact. And that's what the concern that I have, is that it's already frustrating, because I've seen it grow over the years, right?
Sure.
The number of traffic and cars and everything, and it comes with the police and speeding and, accidents and everything else gets increased. And then you start adding 300, 400 more cars to that. It's like, where are they going to go?
yeah. Right, you start to feel like you're going into the TD Garden.
Right.
When there's a game,
Right.
and you know how much different the traffic is
Yeah,
than
I
on a
mean,
regular
when
day,
I
right?
was young, 150 years ago, you could drive through town and not really have that much traffic, and now it just gets worse and worse and worse, and it's everywhere, it's not just here. But trying to slow that kind of, hey, we're gonna dump another 200 cars on you.
Right.
And you're gonna have to absorb that on the roadway, and then the infrastructure that goes along with it. It's just, how do we mitigate that so it's not all at once, that it's kind of eased in, so it gets kind of used to it,
Right.
that kind of thing.
I had a question for you. You mentioned that so people who were perhaps aging out of larger homes would have somewhere to go, but you didn't say that this was going to be restricted by age.
No.
Are you considering that?
We've never done an age restricted. I don't understand the market as well. We always thought, if you built a non-age restricted, anybody could live there. You're not, cutting your market. I think it's something we would think about, but we're not as comfortable with because we just don't know the market as well.
And would these be rentals or ownerships?
We would propose rentals.
Okay, so that's more transient. It's just a lot right now that we have, and I mean, are you anticipating, because of our new school system coming on, that a lot of young families are going to want this? I mean, that's not quite what we're looking for at this point.
Yeah.
If you talk about people trying to find a place to live when they move out of their home, that's one thing. If you talk about trying to help people rent apartments so they can attend the new Pentucket High School, I'd like to see people invest a little more in the town than rental.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a mix. We built a project, I mentioned, 3 years ago, we finished in Revere. It was 196 units. There were no kids and there were 84 dogs. And, 250 people, or whatever the story
Where
was.
was this?
That was in Revere. So
But
it's
that's-
obviously a very different demographic. But I think you'd see some retired people, you'd probably see some younger families. It's the 3 bedrooms that bring families. They're not going to want a studio or maybe a 2-bedroom. So I think we'd see some. The ownership and rental, you get a little more, probably families with rentals than ownership.
How many acres is that in there? It's about what?
It's 6.5,
That's what I thought, so 6 acres, and you can put how many units on that?
probably about 140.
Wow. That's staggering when you think about this town and this, how small we are. This is going to set people back a bit, I think, that kind of unit, going in on top of the other one at the same time. I don't see how we can look at this as something that's going to benefit people that live around there. Why would that be a benefit to them?
Well, I think, you know, there's such a demand for housing in the state overall, radiating from Boston outwards, that, you know, if you go try to rent an apartment in Haverhill, there's nothing. In North Andover, I mean, I own a few in there's nothing. You can't, even in Lawrence, you know, one bedroom, 1,800 in Lawrence. I have friends that are building a house, and they're renting a two-bedroom in the Pacific Mills in Lawrence. They're paying $2,400 a month. I agree, it's staggering. I said, "Wow, you're kidding me? You're paying $2,400 a month in Lawrence? That used to be like the cheap place to live." But there isn't a cheap place anymore. There's just nowhere for people to live. It's amazing. So I don't know. I've got a 16-year-old. In 10 years, where's he going to live? I have no idea.
My son lives in Haverhill. He rents, he likes it.
Yeah, no, it's great, but everything's
Yeah.
gotten more expensive, right?
It
It's
is.
tough these days.
It is, and I realize the need to provide for housing and all that, but I just wonder if that is the best location for that type of a housing development. That's a pretty congested area already with the Whitestone and the condominiums, and then we have our elementary school right there. Not to mention, we have so much traffic on School Street now, you barely can't get out anymore. If you have to get across town, good luck. It's really dangerous. And you're proposing one access road in and out, I suppose?
Yes.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Ed.
I know.
Yeah, just a couple questions.
Sure.
What's the anticipated impact on the school?
I haven't run the numbers yet.
You're proposing, I know this is early, but are you looking at a second means of egress or entrance?
Not at this point,
Just
no.
one. And the reason I'm asking that is, if there was a second, you could run a water loop in and out. And I know we have problems out back here where a dead-end water line at
Right.
the elderly housing out behind here. And if it was a looped system, it might be better for the people with the water. Another point is, I don't see any means of emergency vehicles around the back of the building. Would they be able to, obviously, you got entrance or exits in the back of the building. Would you be able to run like a driveway around the building for access for emergency vehicles?
Most towns that we've been building in more recently, and we haven't talked to your fire department, obviously, have wanted access to three sides of the building for fighting the fire. But if Groveland wants four sides, then, we could put something, maybe crushed stone or something like that to
Well,
get
I
around the
don't
backside.
see, looking at that, I don't see, I see one building with maybe three sides. Those two front buildings, does it look like only just one side access?
Yeah, I think we wouldn't be able to get in here or here. You'd be able to get in around those sides.
And you got some trees across there and across the front. Obviously, one of those got to come out to run out onto School Street. Or are you coming out there at a bit of an angle?
No, I think we'd want it to be 90 degrees. That's
Okay.
probably the safest way. And I agree, they just put these in as placeholders, but you're not going to have, I need our traffic engineer to run the sight lines for us, and then also to do the template, taking your largest piece of, fire machinery and making sure that you can get around, get in and out.
But on this, are you also proposing at 181 or just the rear? 'Cause this map that you provided here, it's like a rectangular shape here with a 181 School Street out in the front. Is that,
No, I think that's what you're speaking of. So that's a existing single-family home, that would stay.
is that the group home that's out there?
No, the group home is here. This is just a single-family.
Okay.
And then that's the other neighborhood with the houses.
Yeah, that's Ann Street over there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
So,
that's all I got for now.
I got a couple
Thank you.
things.
Sure.
So, you said you purchased it, or could possibly purchase that land for a good price, which I know, because I followed it. Have you guys ever got into doing the cluster, like the cluster cottage living homes?
We did one in North Andover about 10 years ago. It was half-acre zoning at the time.
Yeah.
And they allowed us to go down a quarter acre. We left some open, some 25 houses. That's actually where I live, and it worked great.
So my thing is, I don't even know the zoning well enough to be even talking, but they did a nice one over in West Newbury. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Which
If you
one?
went across from the West Newbury Food Mart, and you
Okay.
took a left and went down the hill in there.
I haven't seen it, but,
Well, they're basically, it looks like one house with 2 units.
okay.
And I think I don't know how, there must be 25 or 30 of them in there.
Yeah.
And it's a nice little thing, they built like a nice little fire pit in the middle of it. It's all
Yeah.
one-story homes. But I mean, I think they probably took about 6 or 7 acres, and they probably got 30, 40 places. But they were selling for 400,000 in all, you know what I mean? I don't know if you got into that, making that an option, if you're still gonna
Didn't
make.
look at it, yeah.
I mean, I just, personally, I have a hard time with that high of a building in there, and I just don't think it's gonna fit the neighborhood. But, I mean, that being said, it's early on, I'm sure you got all the boards to go through. I mean, I would definitely wanna see a road study, I wanna see a traffic study, which,
Sure.
I know the other departments will do all that. But my biggest thing is we had another developer come in about a year ago. He comes in, he came before this board, I sat here, I'm gonna do a commercial industrial building site. You know, we're all for it, we're trying to get business in Groveland, you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's in the right area, whatever, well, good, okay, okay, fine, great. Not even 6, 8 months later, he's back in here again saying, I'm gonna turn it over a friendly 40B. Well, what can we do? Friendly, okay, jam it down our throat, we're gonna work with you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We didn't even get one meeting out, and he's in with an unfriendly, and here we are, back and forth. You know what I mean? Everyone comes in, they all sit here, it's friendly 40B, we're all gonna get along great, but one guy wants to get ahead of the other guy to get the project approved before he gets approved. What's gonna sit there and say this is gonna be friendly between this board and you?
Right.
For a long, you know, it couldn't. I mean, we tried to get this done, but sometimes I swear, I feel like I'm wasting my time because we didn't even get to the negotiating table with this guy, and he's off and running, and forget it, going to the state, moving on, see you later.
Right.
And here we are, you know, now we're spending all kinds of money, you know, making sure that it's done right, and what have you. I personally like to see you guys come in with something that you're gonna make a dollar on, it's gonna fit the neighborhood, and we all get along. I mean, that's dreaming.
That's ideal. No, that's
You know, it's probably
ideal.
dreaming on my part, but, I mean, they're beautiful little projects they do over there, and they put a lot of little units. I think that would be perfect in there, you know, they do like a little common area, and they can have like a sitting
Right.
area and what have you. I just don't think it's the right, I don't think it's the right neighborhood for that building, I don't.
Bill?
I'm sorry,
Yep, I just, just, a-
shouldn't say sorry, but.
no, that's
I
all right.
was
I know
talking.
you were talking about the West, but, I don't know if you're familiar with the Nichols Village that we have. It's been very successful in
Yes.
our community, and it's brought some really nice people into our community. And that's why I keep trying to push you gently, maybe to think about, I think the Nichols Village may be priced outside of some people's range, because the buy-in, I think, is pretty steep. But people love it. They're very happy living there. They have a beautiful community up there. They're very close-knit. And that would certainly, if you were able to develop something that would provide a more affordable alternative to that, but while capturing what they have captured up there, that sense of community,
Right.
being in a small town, I think that's more in line with what we need. If you're asking us what we need and what we like, those are two different questions, really, you know? So,
Yeah, go. No, go ahead, you're up. You haven't said anything.
Well, I can empathize with the cost of rent, and I can understand that you're going to probably do what is in your best interest at the end of the day. I just want to state my opposition. I'm a little different than most of these people on the board. I grew up in Everett, okay? I moved here to get away from that
Yeah.
kind of congestion. It's not the kind of community that I moved to. We already have another planned, possibly 190 unit
Right.
in another part of town that's probably going to be disastrous for traffic. It's just, and getting to Selectman Castronellis's point, Groveland is a special place because of the people we have here and the community we've built. And no disrespect to anybody come from Groveland, but it kind of reminded me a lot of Mayberry, right? Everybody knows everybody. Everybody watches out for everybody. Everybody cares about everybody. And these kind of developments change the entire community. and not necessarily for the good. I'm not saying, you know, it's all bad either, but these kind of developments are a change forever.
Right, you're right. And I've, to your point,
These are the kind of things that drive people out of Everett and Malden and Cambridge and Revere and Medford and Melrose, Peabody, Saugus, to get away from that, to be able to open their windows at night on a nice summer day and not be kept awake all hours of the night by traffic going back and forth on the road. It took me 6 months to get to sleep because I was used to that traffic.
Yeah.
And now I want to open the window at night and I want to hear crickets if I hear anything. And this kind of thing, along with the other one, is just going to change Groveland forever. And yeah, I'm not crazy about it. If I could also, can I ask, may I ask a question of the planner, since she's here, what her general opinion is on this when weighed against the other development on Sewell Street?
Rebecca Oldham, town planner. I have no personal opinion per se. The only reason I was kind of interested to sit in is to kind of learn a little bit more about what is being proposed and then offer the board any information in regards to the process and what we're currently going through with the other project. So, I mean, if there's something specific in that regard, I would be happy to answer any questions as to the amount of units we have, what we're required under law, between 2010 census, the 2020 census, what that all does for process, because that will really kind of shape the discussion as to whether or not you want to entertain a additional 40B and or the direction of the town in its current process with the other project that's before us today.
So the,
You have asked the right person.
so that being said,
Can you elaborate?
well, how many units?
How
The
many are
other
we
one's not-
required to do? How
Right,
ma-
but that's not approved yet, obviously. So.
No, but the state says that we have to have a certain percentage of the
Right.
2020 census. What does
Right,
that number
right.
look
So
like?
What's the number looking like?
So under the 2010 census numbers, we are looking at needing 162 units. We have 80 units currently that are on the subsidized housing inventory list. Most of them in perpetuity. A couple of them are in the town commons right next door. Those are set to expire, but in 100 years. So we still have those on the list. So I think we're all set there.
That was the 2010 census.
Per the 2010 census numbers, that is correct. So we need
That's gonna
162
increase.
units. That is correct.
Okay.
So that's at 2,400, I believe, year-round housing units under the 2010 census. When that changes, which will most likely change based upon the amount of growth that Groveland has seen, we're looking at Atwood Estates that was just done, Nichols Village wasn't even taken into consideration. So we'll probably see a big flux in that number. As to what it is for certain, I don't know, but something to take into consideration when evaluating how many units we want to proceed with.
I have a question, Bill, for her.
Yep.
The other project is already kind of underway. Are we allowed to, like, not we, but I mean, the town through the zoning, are they allowed to compare and make preferences known, or does that impact anything? Do you know what I'm saying? When we're looking at meeting this certain number of units, what kind of ability do we have to direct that building in a way that we're more comfortable with?
So I think it's really all about how you negotiate and what the town would like to see personally. I mean, if you're looking at right now, so the developer over on the other location has proposed 192 units. So the zoning board, underneath the statutory requirements, invoked a safe harbor for large projects because as of the 2010 census numbers, it was only 6% of that. So the largest amount, so a large project, they could only propose 145 units.
Okay.
So the applicant came back and revised his proposal to only be for 144 units. However, that would still keep us under our 10%, and the zoning board of appeals never stated one way or the other that it wouldn't approve the 192, but that it would in fact give them special protections that if they did not want to approve it, they could invoke that through that safe harbor.
That was a lot.
So let me ask you this way. With two developers looking at two different locations, I'm sorry to keep you standing over there. is it within our purview to say, we only want to allow X at site A and X at site B, and mitigate the impact on Salem Street, instead of having, say, 200 units there and all flowing out at once, and have 100 there and 100 there, meet our numbers, and then also try to mitigate the traffic and the other kind of hardship on both of those?
Yes, very much so. But the thing to take into consideration is that, again, that number. So the developer at the other location, if restricted by that safe harbor until the 2020 census numbers come out, then you're only looking at 144 units, which leaves us with about
60 or
18 that we would need. So then it would be a matter of trying to figure out and working with a developer, if interested, in finding out the perfect number that would be suited at the other location. So
But if he comes back and says, all right, I'll do your safe harbor 144, whatever it is, we can't say, no, we don't want that, we're gonna grant you 100, and then we're gonna
You
grant this gentleman 100. We can't do anything
you
like
can't
that.
go under the 144 right now because of from my understanding, with the 2010 census numbers, you can't go below what you've already, so because we're at 3.3% of our 10% of our affordable housing, the lowest amount of units that he can get by right under that statute is the 144, and that we couldn't go below that unless we denied the project based upon other parameters.
But we could deny the project on Sewell Street in favor of this project and get 144 units over there and meet our safe harbor number, maybe.
I don't believe you could deny it based upon the fact that you want to create it elsewhere.
I'm
Well-
asking for options.
Well, what if the other project is not respecting our architectural request, is not respecting our request to have fire apparatus be able to get in and around, is not respecting our request to have proper utilities and all that other stuff, but the other project is saying, hey, I'll work with you. What happens then?
I mean, I think it all goes back to the negotiation aspect of things. I mean, the applicant has a certain amount of, due diligence that they have to put into the project, and they have to meet certain standards. And if they're not meeting those standards, then there usually is grounds for a denial. But on the 40B, under the comprehensive permit under the state law, you can't make a project uneconomic for a developer who has the right to do that. So to say, well, if he's met you a certain amount of way, if they've come down and they've tried to find that balance, they've tried to fit into the characteristics, they've tried to meet all the needs, they eliminate a story, they allow for fire apparatus or anything, as long as it doesn't make the project uneconomic. Because I don't believe the rate, you can correct me here, but for the Housing Appeals Court, I mean, it's like a 90% rate of appeal there. So, I mean, you're not really going to much
Right.
win with the state.
And again, I'm new to this kind of thing. I'm new to the Board of Selectmen, new to this, and I went to one meeting where I did hear about that, the safe harbor thing. But I also heard that developer tell our zoning board that the town doesn't need to worry about how it looks architecturally, because it's going to be hidden, so that doesn't matter. And I disagree. I think it matters how our town looks, no matter which road you're going down, no matter where you are, it should look like Groveland.
Of course, definitely.
Yes. And so the developer was telling the zoning board, don't do an architectural study, you don't need that. That's what I heard. I don't know what happened after that meeting, but I was thinking that this developer doesn't care whether this is something that the town can work with or not.
So
That was my
Rebecca,
impression.
So what I said earlier was, number one, we shouldn't be trying to play one project against the other. He's here, we should give him the respect to talking about his project. My point was, if we could do a cluster, what I was talking about, if he's here for a friendly 40B, and he's willing to keep it friendly, and we go into negotiation, if he was willing to downscale the size of the buildings or whatever, could we do something like that in Groveland? Could that be done?
Oh, very much so.
Right.
Very much so. It's
So-
all about a strategy and a game point. I mean,
Right.
there's other safe harbors that we can invoke,
So-
depending on how much units
If
we
they would've-
approve.
If they would've come in here, and they would've downsized the height of these buildings and downsized maybe to something more economical that would fit the neighborhood, and he wanted to keep it friendly 40B, we sit down and we try to negotiate something that way. Only because I know once this thing goes out, you're gonna get opposition. I don't know if the neighbors can have opposition, but I can't believe the neighbors are not gonna come in on that project, that size buildings. It just doesn't fit the neighborhood. It doesn't fit the neighborhood. But yet, what I'm talking about, not that I'm saying I'm right, I think that would be beautiful. I think it would be beautiful to get as many units in there, and I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, the 2-unit
Very much so.
together, and it's basically one house with 2 units, and
It's almost like
over 50.
Whitestone Village, they're kind of like the Whitestone Village.
Yeah, but then they're cottages.
Right.
They're cottages.
They're a little smaller than those, yeah.
Cottagey type things, and they're, same idea, yes. I don't know if they have, maybe they have 1-car garages, maybe. I think, but anyway, maybe if that's the way we went, and we could try and do something that way. I mean, I'm not trying to protect anyone, I'm just trying to say, me personally, I just think this thing's a small piece of land with a lot on it. That's how I look at it.
What was the height of the building proposed, just the initial proposal, is it 50 feet?
The 4 stories is probably close to 55 feet when you look at the peak of the
Right.
roof, so it is pretty tall.
And what's the elevation change from School Street to the back of the property?
I think from the road all the way to the back is about 25 feet.
Okay.
But-
So at most from the street, you might see the top 25 feet of that building.
Yeah, and it really depends on what is out here. I
Right.
think you're gonna see, the end of
That
this
one,
building is
right.
gonna be the biggest problem.
Right.
So I know in one we just permitted in North Andover, if you know where the China Blossom Restaurant is, right behind there, we bought the Knights of Columbus a few years ago. And we ended up switching the buildings around, and there's one closer to the street, and cutting it down and just trying to break up the massing. It was a longer building, but a little bit shorter. We tried to break up the massing, so I could see going 2 stories here, or, I'm not sure. I like your idea, though, and I appreciate the feedback, because we haven't done anything in Groveland before, and it's nice. I'd love to meet with you, too. But it's nice to get some feel for, what's important to people, because everything we build, we own for the long run. We're a family business, so I don't want to do something that people don't want. And it has to look good, because we spend a lot of money on it. We sign personally for all the loans. It's not like a big company that can afford to lose their shareholders' money. It's us.
Right.
So I want it to look great, and people drive by and say, hey, I could live there. That's nice.
Right.
So whether this gets shortened, or maybe looking at some cottages. I have a friend that built a small one, pretty much like you're talking about, I think, in Concord. It was only like 12 units. He won some awards for it, and they were gorgeous.
And-
were really
and-
nice.
And they say the millennials now do not want to own houses. They say they want to come in from work, kick off their feet, and they don't want to own houses.
Want to mow the lawn.
Nope. So,
I don't want to mow the lawn. I'm not nowhere near a millennial.
okay, Ed, go ahead.
Did you run the numbers on how much the town would receive in taxes on this place?
No, I haven't done that yet, because it's really a function of the number of units. And in the past, it really comes from the school kids, right? Because if there were no kids here, it's really great for the town, because you don't plow the snow, you don't pick up the trash. But all of a sudden, if you got 20 kids, it kind of wipes a lot of that out. So we'll try to run both those together when we get a little closer.
All right, does anyone else have anything?
No.
Well, thank you for coming
Yeah.
in, and hopefully we can keep the dialogue open and come up with some kind of a plan where it will stay friendly to the point that we can negotiate something.
Yeah, I'd love that. And thank you for the time, and I appreciate everybody's candor and your
you.
feedback.
Thank you. Okay, so, moving on our list, we have the update on the cable contract renewal. You know. Okay,
Have anyone to operate the camera. Tracy Gelford, 4 Abbott Circle, current chairperson of the Groveland Cable TV Advisory Board. We have met, we're still making progress. Like I reported before, we do see us asking for an extension.
A little louder, Tracy. Louder.
What?
Louder.
I'm sorry, my voice, I'm losing my voice, sorry. You know what? Ooh, gotta try to turn up the PA. Is that better or worse for you? Can you hear me?
yep, a little better.
Well,
No, too much.
Oh,
I
sorry.
feel like we're in Oz.
All right, sorry. I've photographed a lot of people today, so I'm losing my voice. Like we reported before, because we were behind, we see us applying for an extension in order to get everything done. See us doing our ascertainment hearing probably the end of January, and then go from there.
So the extension hasn't been filed yet?
No, it hasn't. Rob, who couldn't be here tonight because you were meeting on a Tuesday instead of a Monday, and he had other obligations on Tuesdays, said you wait until just before to file for the extension.
What time frame do you have to file for the extension? Like,
I'm not sure because he was doing the
do
research
you know
on
if the
that.
survey's been sent out?
The survey, I need to talk to somebody in finance because Rob gave me the information. I went online to put the survey up, and I was going to say, I had sent an email to Denise and asked how we pay for it, and she said either pay for it and get reimbursed, or set up a purchase order, I think it was, in order to get it paid for. When I went online, I was thinking originally I was gonna just put it on my credit card, but when I punched in what Rob told me to do in order to get it active, the bill came up $956, and I didn't want to put that on my credit card. So I was going to email Denise or talk to about getting it paid for, you know, with a check from the town instead of putting it on my credit card.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else for Tracy?
Couple of things.
Yeah.
Today is the 12th. It expires on the 30th. We're going to get that extension filed in the next 18 days for certain.
Yes.
And has the board reached any of its other milestones, such as I know the survey hasn't been done yet, but there was also.
Yeah, the
a-
survey's done, it just hasn't been activated yet, because like I say, I wasn't gonna put it on my credit card.
Public meeting, public hearing, is that? been-
Public hearing is, like I say, the ascertainment hearing, which will be scheduled for January. We need to get all the other paperwork done first, and then we're looking at, once we get into December, we have Christmas and New Year's, so that's why we're going to January.
How long are you filing the extension for?
I think we'll probably ask for 6 months with the hopes that we can get it done in less time.
And how are you doing with the business plan?
Working on the business plan. Hopefully, I'll get a draft beginning of December for your review, and also, you know, other people's review.
I'm all set.
Mike, do you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Ed?
No, almost up.
Kathy?
I think there's just a tremendous amount of work to be done, and I think we need a timeline on this. I mean, we need to know what date the survey's going out on, what date the hearing is, and then when's the capital plan going to be done? And we don't have that.
Yeah, well, the survey will go out as soon as can I ask a quick question? Is Denise still involved? I know she's away, or do I talk to Caitlin about getting a check for, to get that survey activated?
You can submit an invoice
Okay.
for the survey to Ellen in accounting to get them
Okay.
a check.
Okay, because I do have an invoice in my trunk of my car.
Okay, so, but that won't go out until November 27th, because the bill warrant just closed last week.
Oh, closed
So it'll
last
be
week.
another 2 weeks till the next
Okay.
round goes out.
Are you good right now, Kathy?
Well, I guess what I would ask of the board is that I don't, these updates are just,
Right.
they're not helpful to me, and for me, I'm personally, maybe it's
Yeah.
okay with you. I need to know some dates, so I guess the next time there's an update, I'd like to see an outline with
Right.
dates on it,
Okay.
please.
Okay.
Right.
And then get it in advance of the meeting so I can look at it
Yeah.
before I get here.
No,
Okay.
I agree,
Right.
and what I was gonna say, this has, I put it off to this meeting to get the
Mhm.
update, giving you guys a little extra time, more than we already appropriated. We're here now with no work basically done, we got another, well, we're gonna get it filed, but it isn't filed, on and on and on. I think that as a board, me, and as a
Yeah.
chairman of this board, no disrespect to you or your board,
Well, we did. The survey is done. You know what? I'll just put it on my credit card tomorrow, so the survey will be up. So that'll be done. And then I'll get reimbursed from the town. You know, I'll just do it. You know,
well, that's not what I'm talking
well,
about.
it's a milestone. The survey will be activated. You know, and that's what you want. And like I say, I understand.
I would have personally, number one, I don't want you getting angry with me.
I'm not. I'm
But
just.
it seems like you are, but a real big milestone to me would have been to have that 6-month, put up the extension. You walk in here today and said, I got the 6-month extension done, you're good to go. That would have put this
Okay.
whole board at ease.
Okay.
The whole board would have been at ease. That's the biggest milestone that I would have liked to hear.
Well-
But, I mean, they can do whatever they want. I definitely agree with Selectwoman Castellanos. I think that at this point in time, we need to have some timelines and dates met at this point in time.
Okay.
And I'm not saying I want you to use your credit card, I'm not.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know the
understand.
process. I don't know the process, but, I mean, Caitlin just said, you're not gonna make, even if you gave her the credit card tomorrow, you're still not gonna make the next bill run. So it's not gonna be for another, what, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, the next bill run?
Fine, but then I can get reimbursed, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now just do it.
Can I ask when the survey was completed?
I can't remember the exact date.
Week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, roughly?
I think it was like a couple of weeks ago.
It's a couple of weeks ago, so at that point in time, I think you would have had sufficient time to say, hey, I don't want to put this on my credit card, can I get this on the bill warrant for this upcoming 2 weeks? Would have given us in finance more than enough time to satisfy your financial needs to get this survey up. To Ms. Castellanos' point, and to Mr. Dunn's point, I just don't see, and I know I've been hopping on this a long time. I think I started moving on this back in November of last year, when I saw that this was a deadline coming up. I just don't see much progress made, and it concerns me that we don't seem to be moving the ball down the field much at all.
What I'm gonna ask at this point in time is I'm gonna ask if the next meeting, we can have your board come in to the next meeting, and hopefully, by the next meeting, that you're gonna have at least the milestone met for that 6-month extension, or paperwork filed or something. But I would ask if you can, you're the chairman of the board, to have your board please come in for the next meeting. That's gonna give you to that meeting to get this milestone met. I think the survey, it's great. I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem right now is we're not gonna meet the November 30th deadline, and this 6-month thing needs to be filed. And however we go about it, it's gotta be done ASAP. It's urgent, it's gotta be done. And I'm gonna ask if you as a chairman, to have the board please come in.
Um,
And if we need to have a meeting sooner, I will come to a meeting sooner.
Again, for me personally, I would want something in my packet that I can review.
Sure.
Not just have them come in like an outline or something about what.
Okay, by
Well-
Friday before the next
Thursday,
select-
we get our packets on Thursday.
That
Yeah, just
package
just
on
an outline
Thursday.
at least of the dates or proposed
Okay.
dates, so that, there's something to follow on. That would be helpful.
Understood.
Okay, does anyone have anything else? Are you good? Ed, everyone's good? Yep. Okay, well, thank you If you can please help me get that put together and get
Yes,
the paperwork back
Mr.
to us.
Chairman.
Okay, so moving on,
Are we gonna change the volume thing right now?
I'm sorry.
Something's Thank you.
Sorry, my voice just...
No, I know, it's going around the school.
are we all set?
Yes, we are,
So
thank you.
moving on, we have the town manager continued discussion, continued work on the job description. So when we left the last meeting, there were some points that we had marked down that we were gonna talk more about.
Well, we have a short list, this is what this is, right? These are the points, you asked her to put it on the list, this little list.
Yeah, it's included.
Yeah.
Should be just this one, though.
So I was using this one, but,
This short list,
I'll
this
put
is
that
what
one away
we
and
said,
go
okay, this is what we have to talk about.
okay, so the first one is maintains calendar for the use of the town building. Oh, check that off to have further discussion. Does someone wanna start talking about that one?
But I thought there was a sense within the board, at least there was 3 or more that felt that that shouldn't be in the town. The only reason it was held off was, we were doing that check whether it was a manager's job or not a manager's job, right? So this one was thought to be something that could be assigned to another position. So if that's still the sense, I guess,
Yep,
then,
my sense.
okay, if that's the sense, then we can just, that would have to go to a different position, to another, be assigned to somebody else.
Sure.
Is
Go
that,
ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's something that would be low, should be below the pay grade of the town manager to just maintain a calendar. That's should be a clerical position. And you don't need somebody that's working below their pay grade.
So that being said, who would you think that would be to do that?
well, I thought the point of the discussion is to finalize the town manager job, so I thought we should just stick on what's gonna be in this job, rather than creating any other jobs.
I'm not trying to create a job. In the last meeting, we said, we checked off these points, and I said, in the next meeting, we're gonna talk about them, and that's what I thought we were talking about, so I must have misunderstood. I don't know. I don't.
Well, I think that we would to decide whether it would be the town manager's responsibility or somebody else, but I didn't realize that we needed to be able to, tonight, to assign it to somebody else. I just, that shouldn't be in the job description of the town manager.
Okay.
That was my understanding, what Selectman Watson said is what I understood to be.
So are we just gonna group these things that aren't gonna be assigned into like a pool? And then-
Yeah. I think so.
That's fine, I mean, job description done, and as Bill has says many times, it's government and it's slow, but doesn't mean that we can't move it at some point down the road, right? Let's get something done and see if we can't get a job posted out there before the end of the next ice age, right?
It's global warming, there won't be any.
I'm sorry, before the next dry season.
Okay, so that's not gonna go in the job description for the town manager. Everyone agrees?
Fantastic.
Okay, good.
So, I'm confused.
Well, I thought we were just gonna run through the short list and decide if there's any of these things that we do want in the town manager job, because what we're working on is the job description for the town manager. That's our goal here. We're not supposed to be creating other jobs.
Right, my recollection of this whole thing was, we went through the larger list and
Yes.
pared it down and said absolutely not, absolutely yes, and then these were some of the maybes. They were the vague, where it kind of crosses the line, could be, couldn't be. And I thought the idea of this discussion was to go through these in a little more granular detail to discuss, do they really belong under the purview of the town manager, or should they belong somewhere else? The somewhere else is a discussion to be had, I would think. But I think, if I recall correctly, this was just a discussion to really go into a little more detail on each one of these subjects and decide
When I left the
yes or
last
no.
meeting, I asked Denise to take and come up with a list of these ones, and I said, next meeting, we will discuss these ones here in more depth. That's what I was under the impression, but maybe I misunderstood, and maybe I
Well, that's-
wasn't.
No, that's exactly
That's
what.
what we're doing.
That's exactly what I said. Discuss
Oh.
these more in depth and say, Do they belong or don't they
Well, I
belong?
must have said the wrong word when I said maybe have it, whatever, I don't know what I said something wrong, I don't know what it was. But, go ahead, someone try it. I tried it last time.
All right, Mike, lead the charge.
If I look at the next one,
Approved.
One of you.
it almost falls into the same category as the one above. Coordinates with the recreation committee and in-town sports group to use of town fields. It almost goes along with who's coordinating the calendar for town building use, who's going to be using this particular space on a Tuesday in July, as opposed to having to use the space out back for a meeting or some odd.
Agreed.
I agree with that. So can we put a star next to the first and second one for now? Just put a star there and not talk about who's gonna do it? or
Oh, we
Third
just
one.
put no. It doesn't belong in that job
Okay.
description at all. We
No.
eliminate it and
And
move
no.
on. I think
Okay.
that would be my,
Okay, no,
Okay,
got it, 2 no's.
I have a proposal on the third item. Since we already have in the job description approved that the town manager is the communications officer of the town, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 lines down on the town manager, approved. Could we just strike this?
as
Complete.
redundant.
Yes. Because as the communications officer, that individual will decide who's going to be updating whatnot and all that, right?
I'll agree with that because it does seem
Okay.
redundant when you look
So
at the two.
strike it.
Fantastic.
Strike it. Okay.
And the next one is the redundancy of the one above.
Strike it.
Oh, you're right.
Strike it down.
Strike it, the foster and promote, you're right.
Progress.
Okay.
You know, I don't think the town manager should be a
I agree.
psychologist, psychiatrist, a therapist. We
Well-
expect any person to have a good working relationship and act like an adult and act like a professional. But I think this goes almost to the point of, we're asking this person to be, you know, Dear Abby.
I thought we just said we're striking the foster and promote, right?
Nope, the one before that.
One before, it, which was,
That was the town website and the town Facebook
Oh,
page.
so we're not striking foster and promote yet?
We're
I'd
talking
like
about
to.
that one now.
No, we want it to be hostile.
Yeah. I think we kind of got it covered.
Striking it?
Well, yeah, because I mean, if we're letting the town manager run the day-to-day, and they're not working well with people, we're gonna fire the town manager, right? I mean, isn't that part of the job description, is to be able to work well within departments?
Yeah, that should be part of the town manager's responsibility to promote an effective working relationship with department and boards and committees.
But do you think it needs to be stated specifically like that? Like,
Yes.
oh, okay, so you
If
want
it's
to,
not, if it's not,
all
if
right.
it's not written, it's not in effect.
How about the
Okay.
personnel director, would that fall under that department at all?
Uh,
Because if someone has a problem, you would think they would go to the, if they had, let's say they had a problem, they wanted to talk to someone, they go to the personnel director? That's kind of how I looked at that one. If someone wanted to
But the
talk to
town
someone
manager,
or whatever, if they had a problem, they didn't want to go to the town manager, they could go to somebody else.
Bill,
I don't know.
Are you talking about like a grievance?
Something like that, yep.
So, you know, if somebody has a grievance, it would probably be against the manager.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. You got to give them room to be able to vent what they have to say and give them someplace to go. That's what I was thinking.
well, the town manager acts on behalf of the Board of Selectmen in all personnel duties and laws, and I think, I like the language of fostering and promoting effective working relationships to be part of what we would look for in a town manager, so why not put it over in the town manager's thing?
But if I was working in an office here and I had a problem with the town manager, what I'm talking about is I wanted to be able to go to someone and say, hey, listen,
Well, yes, but just like any place you work, you can, if you have a complaint about your direct supervisor, you go to the supervisor. If they don't want to hear it, you can go above them, but they're probably going to go there with you. I mean, this is the world we live in. So if somebody had a direct problem with the town manager, and they tried to resolve it through all the proper channels internally, we would be there, we would be where they end up. We would be it, unless they're union.
But it needs to be written that way.
Well, you could put, I agree, we could put this piece right into the list here. It would flow right underneath, where did I find it? Acts on behalf of the Board of Selectmen in personnel duties and laws, the top of the short page for the approved list. You see that one on the top? We could put foster and promote right underneath that if you want. Or the second line down says acts on behalf of the Board of Selectmen in personnel duties and laws, on the second page of the approved list.
But what happens if you had a person that wanted to come and file, had a problem with the town manager, where you giving that person the avenue to come?
Well, we always, I mean, when I was on the school board, we had, complaints that would come up, and we had them go through the channels and all the way to the superintendent, and if they weren't satisfied there, then they could come to the school committee. I mean, we're here, for people that work for the town, if the regular avenues don't work. You don't create another whole position just to sit there and wait for that. That's what we're here for. We are the last place that you could go. Right?
I think it's just a wording issue. Bill, I see where you're coming from, that if you have if you have a grievance, it's gonna be probably against the manager.
Right, and a lot of people feel threatened sometimes to go to a manager that high up, and they need an avenue out, that's all I'm saying.
So-
Unions out, they can go to a union, that's
So could-
perfectly fine,
So
but,
could it be written, if you have a grievance with the town manager, that it goes directly to the Board of Selectmen?
sure, that's all I'm looking for.
Well, I think that's kind of already in place in the town under our personnel bylaws.
I've been on the board 6 years, I've never had anyone,
File agreements as far as.
Well, I know that, but I do believe that, I think we
Against
have
you?
bylaws, and I think that is in
I've
place.
had no-
Okay, but do we want this piece that's on the short list to go into the job description? I mean, it's a nice statement to foster and promote effective working relationships for the,
Exactly, and that's, I think, to my point, it's a nice statement, but unlike the other job descriptions.
thing, yeah.
It doesn't oversee, it doesn't write, it doesn't prepare, it doesn't supervise. How do you quantify whether they've fostered and promoted effective
You need someone to
working
do it.
with it?
You
Well,
need someone to
actually,
engineer it.
I mean,
You need
it's-
someone
I
to
could
watch.
answer that question, I think, if you want. We would see the evidence that we know there's various departments that sometimes don't agree on things. We would expect the town manager to help them try to find common ground and compromise and working together, right? Isn't that,
But if you had someone, if you had a board or someone that did not want to deal with the town manager for one reason, you gotta give them to come to us. I mean,
well, yes, but that's a whole different thing. When you look at this broad statement, I'm looking at this in the way that I would expect if this town had a town manager, that this town manager would be aware of departments working together and how it's going and whether or not they're having difficulties at all, and then helping them to get things done and get things done in a good way.
Didn't you just define
Teamwork.
manager?
Well, yes, I mean, I don't, if you want it in there, it's
Strike it.
fine with me. If you don't think you need it, whatever.
let's strike it then.
But that's different from a grievance hearing or a complaint. That's not what that statement's about.
Do you want to put in there, Bill, that somewhere along the line, it probably would be in the personnel bylaw rather than in the town managers, that if you have a dispute with the town manager and you wanted to go, you go
I
directly
think
to
that
the
you need to
selectmen.
have something somewhere, if it's, like you said, if it's in the personal, added to the personal bylaw or something, I definitely think you need to, if you're gonna change it, this is one thing that you need to put in. Maybe not,
Okay, so you're talking about adding to if the town approved a town manager position, we could add to the personnel bylaw to ensure that there is a path to follow if your complaint ends up being with the town manager. That's what you're saying?
well, that's where we've drifted off to, yes.
Well, I didn't know if that was your initial point or not.
I think it ought to be in there anyway. whether
Right.
you go with it or not. If you're not satisfied with the grievance or the person that hears the complaint, it should go then directly to the Board of Selectmen.
And the only reason that this particular item brings it to my mind, if you had boards and committees or a department head that didn't agree with the town manager, you're giving them another route to go. That's all I'm saying. If
Right.
you wanna word it that way, that's fine. That's all I'm
No,
saying.
that-
I'm trying
that
to give
makes-
them
makes
a
a lot of
different
sense.
route to go.
How does, for the work we're doing tonight, do we need this statement to be struck? Are we striking the statement for now and saving it for the personnel bylaws? That's all I'm asking.
I just don't know how it's a job description. It doesn't.
It isn't.
Okay, no, well, it was taken from job descriptions
Do you
from
wanna
other
write
town managers, so, but
Personal
you,
bylaw in there?
Well,
There is a grievance policy in the
The
personnel
way,
bylaws.
the way this is written here, foster and promote effective working relationships within departments, you could play the devil's advocate. If the town manager was not having an effective working relationship with departments, boards, or committees, then you could ask for a dismissal, or bring the person in and talk to them about it.
correct.
If you don't have that in the job description, then you have no other avenue. Obviously, the person that you have in the position should meet this part of the description. They should have an effective working relationship with department boards and committees, and if they don't, then that's not a person that we want in that position. Does that make sense, Bill?
Sure.
So how about we put it in the job description then, right after the second line on that page, acts on behalf of the Board of Selectmen in personnel duties and laws, and we just add that piece in there
Hmm.
to flow
So
with
we're gonna
that.
add to,
The foster and promote. Yeah,
approved job, right?
yes.
Okay. Moving on. May appoint or remove department heads and other employees for which no method of selection is provided by law. Such appointments and removals shall be effective 15 days from the date of written notice unless BOS votes to reject such action.
Person a manager or not?
This is a manager, yeah. It belongs in the job. I think this is tempered by the 15 days so that if that, for some reason, the Board of Selectmen wish to meet on it and review it before it takes effect, the Board of Selectmen would have that opportunity. They could they could actually post an emergency meeting if they felt strongly enough that they wanted to review the action. But I would think this is something you would want to allow them to have for responsibility.
So, a town manager, if the town manager wanted to go to the highway department guy and say to him, I want to appoint you, to a higher position, we're giving them the full authority to go and hire to a higher position.
When they're not, this is only non-union.
I'm just forgetting, the not union, forget the union, I'm talking,
Okay, so let's
I
say
don't think
town
he's
manager,
union anyway, I'm just trying to use a
Yes.
sample. So you're
Yes.
giving all the power to the town manager to go and give raises whenever needy. I don't think that,
well, no, not raises. The money is already set by town
may
meeting.
appoint,
It's positions. Yeah.
but even if you're gonna change a position, I would be careful that we're giving too much power to the town manager in, I don't know,
Well,
maybe I read into the stuff too much.
well, if somebody quits, it gives the town manager the ability to fill the position from within if they can, right? Right?
Quickly.
You quickly, and we have the 15-day thing, so I'm sure that if time permitted, I would assume whoever's the town manager would run it by the Board of Selectmen most of the time anyway. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
part of the process, I would think that'd be part of the process, right? That they would, almost like the police chief recommends, and we say, yeah, this is a good recommendation,
Well,
good job,
except
sir.
we're giving them the authority to just do it. Like, I think it probably applies more toward so in other words, a person could be dismissed for cause without us meeting if this were there.
I don't read it that way.
How about,
don't?
how about adding in there something to the effect that if the aggrieved person would get a hearing before the Board of Selectmen if they so choose?
Oh,
I know it's in there unless votes to reject, but it doesn't say anything in there about they're appealing to the Board of Selectmen, and I think they probably should be able to.
Sure, I mean, that makes sense, but the part that I'm saying, may appoint, that's all I'm reading. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, may appoint. So I'm thinking if the town manager sees that line, says, well, I can appoint, you know what I mean? That's given
The
quite
way,
power.
well, the way I read it is that they may appoint and remove department heads. So
Right.
So they're in charge of the department heads, so they, instead of the Board of Selectmen making the appointments of the department head.
It's putting full power into the town manager. That's how I'm
And-
reading it.
And if you read the description of all these towns, that's primarily one of their duties.
it is one of their major responsibilities. Yeah,
So I guess it's gonna be moved over to manager then.
But I'd like to see in there where an appeal process.
well, it might not go in the job description, maybe it should go in the personnel
I
bylaws.
think it ought to go in the job description. Again, if it's not written in there, it doesn't,
The one about,
it's not in effect.
Well, find some language then, because I didn't see that kind of language in any of the job descriptions.
No, I didn't see it in any others, but there's no reason why we can't add it in.
so are
Right.
we adding this into the job description?
Yes.
Yes, some kind of a,
What are we adding?
May appoint and remove department heads, that 1, 2, 3.
the
Six
grieved
item
person
down.
should get, if they so choose, get a hearing before the Board of Selectmen. It just says here, 15 days written notice unless the Board of Selectmen votes to reject it, but there should be some wording in there that the person can appeal to the selectmen.
They should be able to at least have a second look at it.
But that should be part of the personnel handbook and not a part of the job description, I would think.
Okay?
I thought that too, but then Selectman Watson says he thinks that if it's not in the job description, it doesn't really exist.
Well, it
Exists in the
it
employee
could,
handbook, it does.
well, well,
I think you gotta sign up for the handbook.
Yeah.
then why have such appointment rules or removals shall be effective 15 days from the date of the written notice, unless Board of Selectmen votes to reject such action. So,
May appoint and remove department heads and other employees,
yeah,
period.
yeah.
Don't put all the other stuff in it. Let the handbook handle all that then.
No, I think this was in a town manager's job description, and I think that the 15 days allows the Board of Selectmen enough notice that if we feel that we need to convene a meeting and discuss this, either appointment or removal, whichever it is, we have the ability, it says, we can reject it
How
if we
about-
feel strongly
How
about
about
it.
tabling that till the next meeting and give it some additional thought? You guys want to table it?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, tabled.
Table.
Agreeable crowd today.
Move it along.
And the one below it, it says the same, oh, no, it's membership on committees. Okay. I'm all right with that one going in the town manager.
I really don't see a problem with that. I mean,
Right, so we don't have to drag people in here to meet with us every time we put somebody on a
Make
committee, right?
Makes recommendations. So the town manager would make recommendations to us or whatever.
Yep. So putting it in?
Do you want to include that? Or do you
I
wanna-
mean, someone really should make a recommendation to the board. I mean, is that something, if you're not gonna have another position,
I
I
think
mean,
that needs to be in.
what?
I think that needs to be in there.
How about adding, make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen for appointment and removal of relevant positions and membership on committees?
Yeah, we do something like that. You guys
Okay.
want that?
Sure. Make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen to,
Okay, and then that's gonna be, it's gonna be added to the, we're gonna add it to the, job description, right?
yes.
Add to job. Okay, next one, works jointly with financial staff and maintenance of the town buildings. I definitely think that works jointly with the financial staff. And the financial staff would be the finance board, wouldn't it be?
No.
No, that's like the
It's-
maintenance
It's gonna be
department.
your finance director, your accounting people, your finance
Treasurer,
department.
collector,
Yeah,
assistant
I mean, I
treasurer.
definitely think that's something that should be.
Yeah.
Maintenance of the on maintenance,
Should be
that
under
should be the
somebody
guy
else.
that does that job, I
Yeah.
would think.
I don't think this belongs at all.
I don't think it belongs here at all. I think it belongs under the purview of the building guy that's getting paid to take care of the buildings.
Or he's gotta have a supervisor, so,
Right. Town
that should be
manager.
somebody, well,
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 or
it already-
whoever.
Yeah, it
well, I don't
already,
know if it should be the town manager.
well,
I don't
it-
know, I didn't think he needs a supervisor, I agree there.
Well, I
But-
think the town manager, I'm just looking through what we already have in there. Right, it's already in the town manager job description, responsible for oversight and maintenance of all town buildings. Redundant, we can take it out. Right here, what did I just find? Oh, now I lost it. It was right, oh, here, the first big page for the town manager, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, God, now I lost it again. I was right there. Okay, it's right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 down from the top of the approved items. We should have these numbered.
I trust you.
It is redundant, because we already have that in the job description. Oversight and maintenance of town buildings.
Yeah, but,
So we,
I don't-
this is redundant.
so maintenance of town buildings,
Yep,
works jointly with,
for the oversight, so we can just
It's already
strike it.
kinda listed.
yeah, all right, so just strike it.
Mm-hmm, yeah, I think so. And the next one, I think we already have that too. We have a long,
Maintains personal records, employee files, personal, that would be personal instance, leave of absence. Wouldn't that be the personal finance director? That would be.
no, the finance director is being eliminated with the town
I mean,
manager.
I'm sorry, personnel director, personnel director.
Well, that's who the town manager pretty much is. But look on the page we've already approved, on the short page, we have
Yeah, that's,
employee benefits, labor contracts.
that is part of the manager's responsibilities.
I think you have to. If these people are
So
reporting
should
to
we
the
put
town
this
manager.
one right
they
in
should
with
be
these guys right
responsible
here?
to
Look,
maintain-
this one,
You know, when your
where it has
boys are in
labor and
or
all
out,
that
right?
stuff.
Pages, yep.
The short page of the town manager, the second page, like the third,
So we're gonna add it to approve.
yeah, if we could slide it in between the labor contract place,
Sure.
that would fit there maybe.
Okay, add to the approved job,
Okay,
okay.
so we're gonna add it.
Last one, oversees and administers all license permits under jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen.
Why isn't that the town clerk? Doesn't the town
I would
clerk
think
now?
that would-
No, because we
She
do
does
the,
some, but she doesn't
we
do,
do
like,
certain
the,
licenses.
This is like liquor
Alcohol, yeah.
license and class 2 auto, common vic.
The ones that
I
we
mean, if she's
approve
doing
normally.
licenses, why not give it to her?
Well, because we have the authority to grant or not approve those now. So if we're transferring to a town planner, then they would either we would still have to do that, or the town
Oversees.
manager would have to do that.
Administers all, I'm saying the part of it that she would oversee the paperwork of it and then bring it to us and give it to us for the vote.
That's fine by me.
That's all I'm saying.
The way it's set up now, the Board of Selectmen act as the license commission.
Right, no, I know
And-
that, but I'm just
and,
saying, this duty could be done by the town clerk and not the town manager, and then
Well,
they
it does,
could give it to us and we'd vote on it.
well, it doesn't say approves, it just says oversees and administers, so I think we
Oversees
still
and
approve.
administers, wouldn't that be doing all the paperwork and ministers?
Right, yeah, and then we approve.
Right,
Right, so I think it's, yeah, I think
town
it,
clerk.
no,
I don't think the town clerk-
Oversee and administers is the town manager, and we approve.
So what kind of
'Cause it
license?
says
Like a liquor license
jurisdiction.
and what else?
Common vic, class 2 auto, for people to sell used cars, sell food.
Those are three major categories. Everything else
Yeah,
is.
those are the 3 ones I just sent
So
out,
what-
Those are all approved by the license commission,
which is,
and the Board of Selectmen are the license
Right,
commission.
I understand that part, but the duty of doing the actual putting the paperwork together, why is it,
Town administrator. That's-
or a town clerk or something, why would they,
Well, town
why would
manager.
that duty,
Or
that's kind of a
somebody,
minor thing for a town manager
Somebody
to do.
like a clerk's responsibility.
Well, it's a
Yeah,
legal
that makes sense.
responsibility, so it would fall on legal responsibility. It is a manager responsibility to oversee it.
But
You know,
no,
I-
because to Selectman Watson's point, we are the authorizing body.
Yes.
So ultimately, we have the yes, yea, or nay vote regardless of how they kind of
Put the
apply
paper
for it.
together.
Right.
Right.
That responsibility can never be with the town manager if,
Right. All the town manager is gonna put the paperwork together and feed it over us for a
Same
vote.
way it's done now.
Well, yes.
Well, then why
Same way
not
it's
put
done
in
now.
there, prepares the paperwork?
Yes, well, that's what I mean. I thought this should be in the town manager's job description, because he gives us the paperwork and we go yes or no.
So my saying is, why would, that's fine, if you guys wanna do that, it's fine. My point is, if the town clerk is the one that does all that permits already, why wouldn't you just take one more duty away from our already full
I don't
set
think
of
she
duties?
does,
She doesn't.
she doesn't
She
do
doesn't do
those
that.
ones.
Who does it?
Denise.
I
And
understand.
She
Who does
delegates it out.
What?
I help her with it, or I have for the last 2 years.
So the town manager would do some
But
of
she
it.
oversees and administers and then delegates out the work.
So the town manager oversees and delegates, fine. That sounds
Because if
good.
it went to the town clerk, she's elected, so if there was anything that was done incorrectly or she wasn't on the ball, not to say that she wouldn't be, you guys wouldn't have a say.
So that's gonna be added to the job description.
Yes.
As long as the Board of Selectmen still sign off on the permits,
I
and
think
it doesn't say that in here.
what says under our jurisdiction.
I can read that,
Oh,
Kathy.
okay, I just thought jurisdiction means us.
I'm not, Kathy, I'm sorry, but I'm not a student in your school. I don't appreciate being talked to like one. I
I'm
saw
not-
that, I could read it without a problem.
Okay, you don't gotta get all mad. I was just trying to say the word
I'm
jurisdiction.
not getting mad, I just
Yes,
don't
you are.
like, I just don't
Okay,
like the
fine.
condescending attitude.
It's not condescending now, knock it off. That's mean to me. Very mean.
Okay, so we're gonna add that to the approved job description. We all set?
sure, yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
So the short list is done.
The long list has already been done.
Right, so, okay.
What's it, the board? No?
What's that? So we moving on to votes of the board.
We don't have any.
We don't have any.
Finance director's time?
Yes.
Oh, I thought we wouldn't have any.
Rennie will be working on getting the Christmas tree for Town Hall lawn and for Elm Park. And the Board of Health sent a letter to the owner of 128, 130 Washington Street regarding the furniture on the sidewalk.
Good.
That's it,
That's it.
okay?
Wow.
Selectmen's time in reports, starting with Kathy.
I don't really have anything new. It was really nice to go to the Veterans Ceremony. I thought it was really, very special that they recognized, Catherine and her overcoming her injuries and training. I thought that was really a special moment. It was a really nice chime with the band and the chorus and all the speeches. It's nice celebration.
Okay, that's it?
Yep.
Ed?
Yeah, just a couple things. We need to schedule an executive session prior to December 31st to deal with contract of the finance director and the police chief. Maybe have to have 2 sessions. As you know, their contract runs out the last day of June, and they both have to be tendered prior to December 31st. I know 3 years ago, that didn't happen. So we need to schedule a session to go over a contract for both of them. And then coming up in the new year, most of the contracts for highway department, the police department, I'm not sure about the water department, but those end July, last day of June. And so after the first of the year, we have to get working on the contract for those. But these two, I know have to be done 6 months prior, and we need to work on that.
Okay?
I just have a question. Are these contracts, do they say that we have to negotiate them and have them completed 6 months prior? Or is it that we have to give 6 months' notice to the individual if we do not intend to renegotiate the contract?
The way I read it is if they're not approved and by December 31st, they're locked in for the next 3 years. So we gotta talk about it anyway. We ran into that 3 years ago.
So if you were to ask these parties to come into an executive session and they didn't want to come, you wouldn't necessarily be able to negotiate with them.
Right, then post the jobs.
I don't think that's what the contract says. I would like to see that we look at the contract and then discuss this again at the next meeting, so we can set a proper schedule.
Okay? So can you,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, it's all right.
Oh.
Can you
Forward us all copies
copies of the contract, at least
in
that part of it,
question.
or if you can just maybe even make it simpler and say, that part of the contract, when the renewal.
Renewal part
How,
of each
how,
contract?
yeah, how the renewal part of it works. And just drop us an email,
Yep.
make it simpler. Did I say that right? I think I said it right.
Yep. I'll take the whole thing if you don't mind. I don't
Oh,
mind,
okay.
I don't mind reading.
All right, no, I don't. I
I'll have
didn't
the
know.
whole thing too.
I'll take the whole thing too.
You got it?
I'll leave the Pines Playground for you. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Yeah, no, okay, so for me, under Selectmen's time and reports, I need to get a hold of whoever was in charge over at the Pines, because I've gotten a few complaints about the outside of the playground that was installed, it wasn't backfilled, the dirt wasn't put up against it, and that it's unsafe, and a couple children have tripped, and I wanted to be able to see if we got our money's worth, that job's been completed, because it doesn't look to me, when I went down and looked at it, it doesn't look completed to me. There's some areas where the fencing's not been put in on fall radiuses and what have you, so I would like to somehow get the chairman of, I don't know who, I can't think of the girl's name,
Guilfoyle?
Guilfoyle.
Okay.
Her name's Guilfoyle.
Is that who oversaw the project?
I don't know who, I have no idea. But I wanna be able to, before the payment goes out to this company, I wanna be able to read it, I wanna review it, and I wanna make sure we got our money's worth.
Okay.
That's what I wanna make sure. And that's pretty much it for me. Move on to you, Bill.
Okay, as far as reports, the 40% reconciliation between, this is in regards to the high school building. We're at 40% reconciliation between the as-designed and as-built. So that's as-designed costs versus as-built costs. We were approximately 2% apart from each other. We did spend a marathon day at the architect's office on the 6th of November in a VE, which is a value engineering discussion, to look at basically just about every nut and bolt in the project to determine where we could reduce costs without reducing any of the educational value, the integrity, the infrastructure, or the overall value of the building. I'm pleased to say we did a tremendous job and scraped out a lot of things that no one will ever notice, no one will ever need, and we're able to come to get under the line at the 40%. So that was really great news. The MSBA is very pleased with the project, the way it's going. It's still on schedule. That's a very encouraging thing as well. Our next milestone will be in January. That'll be a 60% reconciliation. We will crunch the numbers between as-built and as designed and as built to make sure the numbers again reconcile back to the original project cost. And then it'll happen one more time at 90%. And that's when basically pencils will be down, Steel will begin to be ordered, equipment will begin to, and materials will begin to, resources will be planned to begin this project. We have another building committee meeting tomorrow night to discuss at a more higher level the granular details that we discussed at the November 6th meeting. But all in all, the project's going well, on time and on budget, which is always great news. So that's it for reports. As far as time,
A question on that.
yes,
Somebody had asked the question, I didn't have the answer,
maybe I can answer that, but I'm not
About-
sure.
about the, when they tear down the middle school,
Yes.
is there money in the fund for that? Is that part of the building, to tear that? That's,
Demolition, I understand, is all included, the entire middle school will not be completely demolished. The district offices will be located in a portion of the building that's not gonna be demolished, and that really saves the district roughly about $1 million in order not to have to build a building somewhere else to house those the administrative folks. But that's part of the
included.
project.
And did they take into consideration there may be asbestos and stuff in the building?
I imagine, I don't know for certain, I can't answer that question for certain, but if anybody had any common sense of building 60 years old, you would have to factor into that consideration there would be a tremendous amount of asbestos somewhere in that building. Does that answer your question?
I
Yeah,
heard,
Paul.
when I went to the meeting in Merrimack, I heard they were gonna keep the offices where they were and tear everything around where the offices were gonna stay.
And the middle school,
In the middle school.
correct.
They're gonna
Yes.
keep those
That building
offices
is
there.
not, right.
And then I think they were gonna keep like a heater or something to heat it. And then the fields were gonna go where the school was or something. Something was gonna be one of the fields was.
The stadium
Something
and the
like that.
football field and the stadium will be located roughly where the middle school is now.
Right.
There will be locker rooms and a press box against the stands. There is we're trying to look at the traffic pattern now because we're not quite happy with the architecture's proposal of how the traffic pattern will flow. So there is an engineering study now being done to look at the traffic pattern and what would be the best way to flow the traffic in a basically congested way, which isn't that easy to do. The buses will go behind the building, but there still will be a lot of traffic with school drop-off, children drop-off at the front of the building, and that's where the parking is gonna be too. So we're looking at that to make sure that there's the least amount of impact, and it promotes easy flow through the grounds.
Are they gonna keep the same parking lot? In
No.
front of the administration building?
In front of the administration building where the middle school is now?
Yes.
No. No, that's going to be the stadium. That's going
Part
to
of
be
the
the football
stadium.
stadium.
Where are they gonna park? I don't remember seeing that on the drawing.
There is parking. It's going to be basically back in front of, basically where the high school currently sits is going to be the majority of the parking. So it might be a little walk to the stadium, but it's not gonna be too far. There'll probably be some ADA parking located right near the stadium, or the very close proximity.
All right, I'm all set.
But I don't think we've discussed parking in that kind of detail yet.
Right.
Still working on the building pretty much to get that to budget. So that's my reports. As far as time goes, I just want to give a great big thank you to all the veterans out there. It's because of your work and your dedication and the blood and sweat and tears and the sacrifices you've made that allow us to be here today, and that allow us to exercise our freedom. So I want to thank you all for your service. And I just want to pass on one public service announcement. I've noticed in the last couple of weeks the coyote activity in Groveland seems to be growing. I've noticed just recently more than one rather large coyotes in the center of town, which I've never seen in all my years here. So folks with young children, little dogs, just a word of warning, you might want to keep an eye out for these things. I don't know where they're coming from, but I've noticed more and more lately that they're coming into the center of town, which is not normal.
Well, they're being pushed out from the other developments, being taken of their land, so that's why they're moving around.
Have you seen any down your building?
There are a lot of them behind my shop. I've gone down there at 9 o'clock at night, some nights doing paperwork, you can hear them, they're loud.
But that's typically where I'm used to seeing them. When I start seeing them cross Groveland, the center, now I start to think, well, this is something that I'm not used to seeing. It's unusual, and I just want to warn, just throw out a word of caution to folks out there to be on the lookout. Thank you.
That's it?
That's it. That's enough,
Mike?
isn't it?
Not really. I mean, I know you and I were trying to meet with the senator, but some other things happened, so that got pushed off again. I'm trying to reschedule that. And I just wanted to say that the paving on Main Street looks good. The temporary lines will be there, I think, until the spring, and then the final painting lines will be on there, so I know it's a 2-year process to get lines painted, but,
2.5 the way
2.5,
we're doing it.
but, yep, eventually, someday, they'll be done, and we can move on to other things that,
We need a new road by then.
well, I mean, I can only do one thing at a time. The sidewalks will come, right? But we're trying.
Okay, so then under old business, Mike, you got anything?
No.
Bill?
I do not at this moment, sir.
I forgot to, but could you ask Rennie about the line painting on the roads that he's done this year?
Yeah.
I've got a lady that actually knocked on my door at my house about King Street and, Governors and Garrison, at the intersection there. You'll
Yeah.
probably know what I'm talking about.
Mm.
She's looking for the stop sign to be painted because cars have been rolling through it, and the hot top road was done a couple months ago, and she feels like it should have been done before now.
There's stop signs at 4
There's
corners
stop
there.
signs there, but what happened is, when you're coming down the hill, she's trying to get like one of the white stop signs.
Yeah, I get that, but the stop signs are still there, right?
Oh, the stop
Yeah,
sign
yeah,
there.
So the people
It's
just
kinda
flow through
bent
those.
a little bit, but,
You know it's a stop sign.
well,
That's more of a
there was
driving
an
issue
accident there
there.
about a month ago.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, so if you could do that, just
White line
see what he
side.
can do.
Okay.
That too.
I don't really have anything else. Ed,
I don't have anything.
Kathy?
No,
Okay, starting with Kathy, old items not reasonably anticipated at this posting.
I have no idea. No.
Ed,
No.
so what I was gonna say, can we scratch this line?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
been here for a long time.
Combine it all.
We never use it. I think we should just scratch it and take it out of the paperwork. Everyone agree to that?
No,
Nope.
well, because we
Combine
never
it all.
use it,
All right,
we can
fine.
skip it, but
All right, skip
Yeah,
it.
we did use it a couple times for something that come up late, that didn't make the agenda. And
Denise used
it's rare, but it
Okay.
does happen.
All right, Mike, do you have anything under that category?
No.
Okay, so, correspondence, we have the minutes from the October 28, 2019 executive session. We have the minutes from the October 28, 2019. We have the FY 2021 capital improvement submissions, current capital assessment list, asset list, departmental submissions, and future year's request. And then we have the adjournment at 20,
move
8:20?
to adjourn at 8:20.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Yeah, that was quick.